ESWATINI, welcome to your 10 o'clock newscast. My name is Abongile Mabuza and I will be reading this evening's news with you. Let's get right into our headlining stories. The ESWATINI Electricity Company launches Earth Hour 2022. The BULLETIN trial continues on, and Pick and Pay ESWATINI and the EFA launched the Kickoff Program 2022. Those are our headlining stories. Let's get right into our bulletin. But first, a message from WaterAid to all Yemaswati. You are reminded to adhere to COVID-19 protocols and rules set in place. Yemaswati are reminded to wash their hands, to sanitize, and to practice social distancing. Now let's get right into our bulletin. The ESWATINI Electricity Company launched Earth Hour 2022. ESWATINI is one of over 200 countries participating in the annual event.
Today at the Little Garden Hotel in Babane, there was official launch of the Earth Hour, which is an initiative that is all about encouraging Yemaswati to save energy. The actual event will be on the 20th of March between 8:30 and 9 in the evening. The theme of this year's event is Protect Nature, Biodiversity, and Make an Impact Wherever You Go. During this hour, the nation is expected to switch off all non-essential lights and appliances. Speaking during the round, the Minister for Natural Resources, Peter Pembe, who was represented by the Principal Secretary of the Ministry, stated that we all need to protect nature together, and that in the past year, the country have experienced the impact of extreme storms and flooding.
This year's Earth Hour is happening shortly after the United Nations COP26, which was held in Glasgow in 2021, which calls for actions for energy transition towards net zero emission by 2030, which is an absolute priority in the climate agenda and that of sustainable development. The energy transition demands one of the biggest investments in the energy sector of the country. Subsequently, His Majesty in his 2022 speech from the throne alluded to that as a country we need to put in place technologies that can minimize the impact of emissions to the environment.
The Managing Director of the ESWATINI Electricity Company, Mr. Ernest Mkonda, mentioned that the company spent over 40 million in repairing infrastructure due to climate-related impacts in year 2021 alone.
Last year, EEC spent about 40 million to repair infrastructure as a result of climate change-related impacts on the infrastructure. And this is a huge money that we spent, which would have otherwise been saved. It is therefore prudent for us to balance our developmental needs against sustainable development needs to meet the sustainable development goals, no matter how small contributions can be. Since December 2021, we have experienced torrential rains and storms in the region, which have had both positive and negative impacts. Positive impact is that we are able to fill our dams for the generation of electricity using our hydros. But the negative impact to that has been the erosion and damage to infrastructure that we have experienced.
I am Zandile Mpapane for Channel Yemaswati News with Gary Carlos Babane.
On the 22nd of February, each and every year, it is Mother Language Day. The Kingdom of Eswatini, together with other countries, celebrates the day annually. The Siswati Language Board has announced that their kingdom will be celebrating the day even this year.
Sito kwatisa nje sive semaswati sibambisene nelibandla labothishela lelibukwa nguye umhlolo omkhulu nebahloli besiswati kuthi esiveni sinana lusuku lolukhulu lomhla ka 21 lo langa lo-21 enyangeni yeNdlovana kuye lo February lesibili nje lesiya kuye eMaswatini sitowatisa kuthi sinale lilanga lelikhulu lokugujwa kwelulwimi lwenzabuko mhlaba jikelele lwamiswa ngumhlabuhlangene lolu suku ukuthi umhlaba wonke tonke njena lamave lakhona emhlabeni uyawugubha lulwimi lwabo lwenzabuko lomdzambu lwaleso naleso sive. Nathi ke sisive seMaswati sililunga lamhlabuhlangene siyahlangana njalo ngalomhla ka-21 nathi nge-21 enyangeni yeNdlovu silugubhe lolu suku silibandla lelibuko lulwimi kwesanika thine umsebenzi lomkhulu kwathiwa siyakulondvolota silucize lulwimi lwesiSwati siphinze sibuyise sifundisalo nekuhlonipheka kwalo lolu lwimi esiveni seMaswati luze liyohlonipheka nangaphandle siphinze futhi siluphakamise siluthuthukise lungene nalo lube sesigabeni saletilwimi letikhona emhlabeni letuthuthukile.
I am Nohlasha Twala reporting for Yemaswati channel in Manzini.
News from the High Court. Now incarcerated Member of Parliament Bakete Mabuza's case continues to develop as video evidence was reviewed in the court session today.
Following the postponement of the high-profile case of the two members of parliament who are charged with the Suppression of Terrorism Act yesterday, where it was stated that Honorable Mthandeni Dube of Ngombisi constituency was reported to be sick, the case continued today at the High Court before High Court Judge Mamsi Dlamini. They to see the video of the three suspects on the case, which are the Honorable Mduduzi Bakete Mabuza, Honorable Mthandeni Dube, and Mduduzi Makakaos Melane, who was a member of parliament for Skovaneni constituency by then. During the commencement of the case, Honorable Mduduzi Bakete Mabuza was addressing the nation through social media platforms and the traditional media houses that, as a member of parliament who has been elected for the second term, he now understands the system of this country and its corruption. Honorable Mabuza said, as the three MPs, they were saying all that they were saying because they were sent by the people to make a call for an elected prime minister. He continued on the video clips presented before court and said the elected prime minister will know the needs of the people because he will be serving them, not an individual. Honorable Mabuza said there were now three suggestions about the elected prime minister. He said those suggestions were the nation should vote for 4 individuals and then those 4 be presented to the authorities of the country to place one amongst them. The second one was that 4 men be presented to the nation by the authorities and then the nation vote for one to be the prime minister. The last suggestion was that 4 men be presented to the authorities and one of them gets appointed to be the prime minister. The honorable member said all the 3 suggestions were not what they were sent by the people to advocate for. He said the people said a prime minister should stand for the national elections from the nominations process up until 4 candidates become elected from the 4 regions of the country, which are Shiselweni, Manzini and Lubambo. He said those 4 will then be assisted by his government to campaign around the country. Mabuza went on to say that government should also provide transport for the nation to the campaigning venues. He then said after they have gone around the 4 regions, they will then be voted by the people and the winner will be the head of government. In the long video that was being presented before court, Mabuza said he would like to assure Yemaswati that he will not be shaken or intimidated by any threats as he is advocating for change. He said he is an elected member of parliament who is a businessman in the country and is a Swazi by birth, and he will not flee the country. The long video continued and the second speaker for today's clip was that of Mduduzi Makakaos Melane, who first thanked the Almighty God for giving him this opportunity to speak for the people. Melane in his speech said all he was saying was his mind and he believes his electorates from Siphovaneni will be pleased about it. He also said even the Eswatini nation will also be pleased about it. Melane made this mainly touched on the construction of a new parliament structure which was approved by parliament. He said he has never heard of Yemaswati complaining of the current structure, that it's now old and there is need for a for a new one worth 1.3 billion emalangeni. As Melania was still speaking in the video, the court adjourns and it will resume tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'm Kim Mavuso for Charlie Yemaswati News with Linda Shonga at the High Court of the Kingdom of Eswatini in Mbabane.
And we head over to the courts now where Ngaza Ngosi continues to deliver his testimony in the case of murdered businessman Victor Gamete.
State witness Ngaza Ngosi today was being cross-examined by SIPO's attorneys. According to the witness that he presented to court against Sipho Shongwe, Advocate Lawrence Hood, Sipho Shongwe's lawyer, confined his question according to a statement which has been seen to be contradicting the evidence that Ngaza presented before court. He signed this statement together with his co-accused, Tata Spiro Ngubane, while in jail in the Republic of South Africa, a statement which they signed before their lawyer, Mr. Nell. Advocate Lawrence Hood stated that the evidence he presented before court and the statement details are not collaborating. Ngosi replied to Hood's question, stating that he is aware that the details of the statement are not corresponding with what he had said, as he was trying to reach his lawyer, Mr. Nell, who could not fix or rectify the problems to amend the statement according to what they wanted, both with his co-accused, which made them end or terminate the process of being an attorney for Mr. Nell and representing them. Countless times, Advocate Lawrence Hood reminded Mr. Ngosi on the oath that he took before court of being truthful and presenting the truth to court when being questioned with legal questions before court. Hood continued to state that when Ngaza was told to identify Mr. Shongwe in court, he was able to do so quickly and could not struggle. He also stated that while Shongwe is denying to have knowledge of Ngaza, Farouk, or having any meeting with them, Ngaza continued to state that the intention that brought him into the kingdom is that they jointly planned the coming to Eswatini together with Sipho, Tata, and Charlie, who is also involved in the matter, stating that while they were coming into the kingdom, their plan was to do the shooting and kill the deceased Victor Gamete. He continued to pose questions and asked if he was given any money or it was divided amongst them. Therefore, he continued to state that there is no intention of dividing money, as they did not come for money in the kingdom. They only came to kill. What only he did, he lied to his partner Tata Ngubane and promised him that they are going to hijack a certain businessman in the kingdom whom is said to have been running around with huge sums of money in his boot, stating that wherever he went, he left a trail so that the police can continue to follow him through the evidence which he had left, where Advocate Lawrence Hood stated that he is being untrue, following that he was able to commit the murder while he was alone and could not notify the deceased Victor Gamete that he has been sent to kill him. He stated that he could not do so since Zozo would recognize that he is trying to make a plan and that would pose danger to his family, following that he was compelled to do the job by Sipho Shongwe. The cross-examination process will continue tomorrow at 9:30 at the High Court, where he'll be cross-examined by Shongwe's lawyers. For Channel Yemaswati News, I'm Linda Shongwe, High Court. Bye-bye.
from the ad break now. Before we get back into the bulletin, we would like to continue to remind you to observe all COVID protocols set in place. You're reminded to wash your hands, to sanitize, and to practice social distancing. Let's get right back into our bulletin now. Gwaka Imvota, the NGO, and the Ministry of Education have launched an appointees program. The initiative involves the building of desks for schools around the country, with Lute Primary being the first beneficiary.
Gwaka Invota, together with the Ministry of Education, have an appointers program whereby they go around this country fixing school desks. The project was started in 2018. Nosi Sangwanyana, who is coordinator of social entrepreneurship and income generation project, elaborates.
Litokole temfundo njengoba siyilauncha nje silontsha siya hand over lo msebenzi leseswendile kiwo besike sakhuluma ke sabananto sahlala phansi nalo litokole temfundo ukuthi kulo msebenzi leswendako engabe ngiyiphi indlela lesingabambisana ngato kuze kusitikola tikhona kusitakala na ungabuka nje ukuthi cishe tonke letikola lama primary schools la khona la ekwangani uye ukhanzeke ukuthi lama desk la khona akasekho esimeni lesingiso kanti ke uye ukhanzeke ukuthi ngeminyaka nangeminyaka uhulumende ema desk lakabadilaniketa dona tikola aye abe mancane kakhulu lesikwenda kwesine sengikwakha Invoza sithatha lama desk wona lawa la ngasasiyo esimeni lesikahle siwalungise bakhona bamana ukuchuleka abafundi.
Gcina Msibi, who is the guidance and counseling, or rather who is in the guidance and counseling department in the Ministry of Education, spoke on behalf of the ministry.
Try to do as a ministry is to provide safe spaces for children in schools. Now, when you talk of safe spaces, it's easy to think of the fence, the security guard, the entrance. But do you know that a small thing as a desk is also a safety issue?
The program was sponsored by the German Embassy, the Swaziland Schools Project, and the British High Commission. I am Nhlanhla Twala reporting for Yemaswati channel at Matapa.
Mfanengosi Timothy Tabete was fined a cow after he testified in the case of a man who was ordered to leave his home after him and his wife got divorced. Timothy Tabete expressed his displeasure about the verdict. Nhlanhla Twala has more.
Following the issue of Mr. Mbuyisa of Malinza, who appeared on this channel, stating that he has been left with no home after his ex-wife took their home after their divorce. Mbuyisa and wife were married through civil rights. Not only Mbuyisa has been affected, hence Mfanenkosi Tabete of Malinza has also been affected after testifying in Mbuyisa's case. Tabete
ngihlawulisela ukuthi ngifazelelana imbuyisa wathi ke sangangithuma ukuthi nomfakazela kanti imbuyisa wahlubeteka waxoshwa emntini wakhe ngalungekho emthethweni yebo-ke manje-ke ngaba thina khona ngayicala khona emphakathi wathi ngiyakhuda mangalaleli bathi akaphuma emntini wakhe ahambe kusala umfana wase uyokumangala-ke Mbuyisa sengihamba-ke nami sengiyomfakazela mina bengifakaza nje ukuthi Mbuyisa wakhonta nini lakaMalinza usakhamuti salakaMalinza ngafakaza lokho nayo induna emcuba bayibida nayo yafika yafakaza nje ngami yahambe etinyathelo ntaba ukuthi Mbuyisa usakhamuti manje kodwa mina ngase ishifu yangihlawulisa ukuthi abe ngithumile yini ngiyena ngithumi kuyawufakaza
bakuhlawulise lokhu ngakanani baba?
Bangikhiphisa inkomo lihamba ngamasoro.
Tabete was a cow by the chief of the area. I am Nhlanhla Twala reporting for Yemaswati channel at Malinza.
A bottle store in Msunduza has become a problem for residents of the community. Community police have reported that late-night drinking at the bottle store has presented unsanitary behavior, leaving both residents and the community police fed up.
A bottle store in Sinduza has been a nuisance to residents within the community and has caught the attention of community police in the area. Customers of the bottle store, which apparently is operative at all hours of the night, stumble onto properties of residents at all hours, causing disturbances. It is also reported that inebriated customers also stumble upon the properties of other people to relieve themselves.
Impela singathi nje sinenkinga kaMsunduza kulamalanga. Inkinga ye-box store seyiguquke seyilibhala. Kusho ukuthi operator nje vele 24 hours vele bashaye emini ebusuku kani i-box store. Bese ke lenye inkinga ukhanze ukuthi nawo makhelane ke bayakhala ngoba balali vele laba kakhulu nje laba lamaceleni kule box store. Kanti futhi nalabantu laba ngibona ke bathenga lo tshwala ebusuku bonke la. Bese bayakhanza ukuthi sebafuna ukutithuma sebatithuma la kule miti yebantu lamabalena le miti yebantu. So ngiyo inkinga lesinayo nje kulamalanga kaMsunduza. Siyamcela nomnikati wayo le box store ukuthi wekunene akasilalele lokuthi ayi operate phela ngesikhathi sa box store kwathi ukuthi ivala kubo 7. Mase kusa nje awu sengilokunye bengizisa cha vethi nyathi matima manje bese sesiyacabana naye kanti phela ngisomabhizinisi naye. Tindlela sinato tonke lesingadenda. Kuthi nje manje wekunene kungcono ukuthi ucala umuntu umunishe kucala ukuthi lokhu akangakwendi. Sinato tonke indlela ukuthi singenda ukuthi kuvalwe nalapha. Ugcine vele kunga-operate manje kasifuni kanjalo. Sifuna ukuthi sibambisane naye asibambise nakuyi-box store nje isheshe ivalwe.
Reporting for Channel Yemaswati News, Abongile Mabuza, Wazandile Mpapane, Msunduza.
Well, that's all we have for you tonight. Let's take a recap of our headlining stories. The Eswatini Electricity Company launches Earth Hour 2022. The Bakete Mabuza trial continues on. And Pick and Pay Eswatini and the EFA launched the Kickoff Program 2022. That's all we have for you.